We've been getting a lot of conversations pop up around partners, men doing free nervous system reset, loving the content, seeing the transformation in people, but wondering why they're only in a room full of women.
Yeah. And so I think like group is predominantly women, but we know that there are also a lot of men out there possibly not feeling as comfortable to communicate and share. And so we wanted to invite some of the men who've been a part of the Reconnected for a while, just to jump on and share a little bit about their experience with breathwork over the years, and maybe to give us a little bit of insight or give a little bit of encouragement, and just to start a bit of a conversation and have a bit of a men's circle.
Yeah. So we're going to invite
First
James.
of all, we want to
popping on.
Introduce you to James. James has been a part of the Reconnected Parenting since the very first ever Reconnected Parenting. Hey, James.
Hey, everyone.
Hi.
Great to have you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, you have actually been one of our original OG men in the community, showing up even when it was just a room full of women there for a long time.
Actually, can I be honest? I think, is this right, James? When we did first do Reconnected Parenting back in 2019, were you the actual only man?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're introducing James as the pioneer of
the men at the
Reconnected.
And okay, I'm gonna get Phil
Also
on.
inviting Phil, and Phil is the partner of our mentor Belle, and actually our coach Candace is James's
wife. Yes.
Welcome, Phil.
Hi, Phil. Nice to meet you. I haven't met Phil before, so it's so nice to meet you and get you on for this conversation.
Absolutely.
Can we hear you? Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So thrilled to be here.
Guys, we're really, really absolutely so appreciative of both of you just willing to come on and have a chat about breathwork. Have we got some dudes in the... Jared's here.
Yeah, Jared's here saying they have another bub on the way.
Okay.
I also threw it to my partner Ryan this morning. I was like, do you want to jump on live? And he was like, and how do I do that with 5 kids? And I was like,
touche,
Ryan.
And we might have Daz join, but it really just depends on how he goes with tech, so we'll see. But just thank you. And we thought it could just be really awesome if you guys would share a little bit about how you came to breathwork.
Yeah.
Who's getting the ping to go first?
I'll share. Amazing. So obviously I found it in 2019 with you guys. So it's like holotropic first, but then when I found your method, it was life-changing, to be honest, because like my nervous system was so jacked up from trauma from the military and all the different things I've experienced prior to being a dad. And then it was like the first time when I first had that breathwork experience on my nervous system, was probably the first time I went into the parasympathetic. And all of a sudden I was present with my children and I was like, what is this feeling? Like how am I experiencing life right now? And even though it didn't last maybe all day or for days, that was the ping that was like, there's something here for me that's going to benefit myself, but then specifically my kids and my wife. So that's where I got the taste of, or inclination to want to move towards breathwork in this way. And I haven't stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. And what about you, Phil? I actually don't know how you started breathwork. Yeah.
I love that you I love that you asked the question, who's feeling the ping to go first, and my ping was like, let's let James go first.
Very tuned in.
Very on brand here. So yeah, it's I think probably a lot of people would relate to this. It's really Belle, my wife, who got me into breathwork. Can't remember exactly. This is less than a year ago, and I think it was through the Reconnected, and one of the first programs around parenting, and I think it was probably the nervous system reset. She's like, "Oh, come and join me in doing this thing," and I was like, "No, as in, yeah, sure, but I don't, I sort of don't feel it or see it, as in I don't necessarily get it," and I wasn't really into it either, and then I started seeing real changes. Like that for her was sort of a catalyst from this to sort of a deeper practice in breath work, and an incredible shift at home, just energetically, how we are with each other, how we are with our son. We have a 4.5-year-old. How her relationship with him, just like everything started really changing, and I was like, wow, this is there's something here that just is quite incredible, and really drew me into wanting to know more, wanting to join some of the free stuff, because I can just go and do that. I saw Jared's comment saying, I've just been watching the replays. Yeah, exactly. Just like take whatever you can and get into it. And yeah, absolutely. And then Belle continued going, or my wife continued going deeper and deeper. And I'm just sort of barely scratching the surface now. And I feel like it's already created incredible changes at home, in work. I mean, we could talk about that later, but yeah, that's kind of it. I would say early in my journey, and that's okay. And that feels perfect. That feels great.
Yeah, I love that.
And would you have identified, Phil, with like having a problem at home, if you know what I mean? Like we spend a lot of time talking about the stress archetypes, but and like being in pain enough to change. But there was a great share from Sandhya last night, and she talked about how when she first came to breathwork, she actually didn't come because she identified with being in pain in life, or that there was a problem. But when the shift started to happen, she realized there were improvements. And I'm just curious if your story might be similar.
Yeah.
Or
I feel like I've done this. This is a longer story, but I've done a lot of work on myself over the years. I think that the way it probably felt, it was like there's a whole heap of stuff sitting in the box, the dark black box. But everything else is going well. I'm managing on a daily basis. I'm good. I don't have any sort of crazy problems on an everyday basis. But there's a whole heap of stuff I should be working on that sits there. But let's not talk about it. So I don't want to say unaware, but felt like I was relatively well in control of things.
Yeah. Because I'm wondering, I think maybe it's hard for women to relate to, but I'm just curious, I think I could just say it, like it is just more normalized for women to be in these spaces and doing this work. And I'm curious what it's like for you when you become a father. I think there's this real okayness, and also there's this space for us as women to like dive into the personal growth and spiritual growth aspect of being a mother. And I'm curious if you could share some insight, either of you, about what that's been like as a man. Like when you said, Phil, that there's so much to juggle, and that was there, but there were other things, and that was all going okay, so this was all right. I was like, oh yeah, men are doing other things potentially, or have a different relationship to themselves in that transition to fatherhood. I'm curious if either of you have anything to share on that.
I feel like, yeah, I do. Like, I thought about this a lot, actually. So for me, I didn't have like a role model to lean on, a father, elder figure to kind of go, what's it like to become a dad? So it's kind of like I felt like I was a bit left in the dark, not having a map per se. And I noticed like what activated in me was just like falling into wanting to provide and protect, but then not really focusing on like the stuff there that was stopping me from being loving or kind or nurturing and connecting and regulated, because I just got too focused in like work mode. So I noticed for me, and then there was no sort of like, you know, there's women's spaces like mothers groups and stuff that the mothers get pushed into, you know, well, my wife did anyway. And for me, it was like I was always this big question mark of like, where's the men's fathers groups at? And I was just trying to search for them, and they just weren't there. So I feel like for me, it was more about there was a lack of something. So I went out to try and find it, because I was just like, oh my God, something feels missing right now. But I can also, what happened, I felt really isolated and lonely and didn't really have any friends that were fathers to talk to other than people online, which just left me feeling like, well, you know, what the hell's going on? And I can feel like there's, you know, I've met a lot of new dads and do talk to them a lot, and they all kind of in a similar space of like not knowing who to orient to be guided in that space. It's like become a new dad, and then they're like, shit, like this is a really new and intense and profound experience, but where do I put these puzzle pieces? And for me, and I think for me, like breath work has been this sort of like connecting point to get regulated enough to then start to move into a new direction. Because like when I became a dad, like I was so dysregulated. I was like in a freeze state all the time, or flight, or fawn, all of them fight. And I didn't know where to go. Like I was just constantly in one or the other, never regulated until like 2019. When it was like, oh, okay, kind of what Phil said. There was kind of like for me a whole box of stuff just pushed to the side, and it was like,
well, if you'd like to share, James, I know your story is like unique, but if you want to give a bit of context to where you're coming from before you were a parent, because I know your story is quite unique to you with how you had all that dysregulation. And often people think that, you know, you kind of have to have it together to get into this work, but, you know, you were up against a lot, right, before you started?
Yeah, sure, I'll share that. So without going into my whole story, like, no, it's all good. I'll share the whole thing if you want. So I moved from Scotland when I was 7, and that was sort of like the first point of like from Scotland to Australia, and then just went through school getting bullied, and then started using drugs and alcohol quite young. I think I was about 12 or 13, and then that led me into like going to the military to try and fix myself, which made things worse. I had a couple of near-death experiences, and when I took a lot of trips away, which then produced PTSD. And then not long after I got out, I just fell deeper into like the drug world, and ended up landing myself in prison for a year, which was the kind of like the pause, the break of like, oh God, like prison sort of thing, what's happening? And then, you know, come out, and then me and my wife, well, she fell pregnant, and then that was sort of like and I didn't realize how like dysregulated or how much my nervous system was locked up until she gave birth. And then we had like the first sort of 3 months, you got the little cosmic blob, so it was pretty chill. But then when Scarlett started to like move and crawl around, I'm like, whoa, and doing things that are a little bit more edgy as babies do, that's when I realized I was like, for me specifically, I would go into the freeze response. And the only thing that would make me feel, this is something that Eleanor shared in one of the lives, I'm not sure if it's this one or one of the previous ones, like if you're in a frozen response, like I scrolling would be the only way to feel something, or take some sort of drug, or surf big waves, right? So it's like I was doing these things to try and feel, but now in the state I'm in now, it's like I don't need to do much of that at all. I'm feeling actually being able to be regulated through conflict, and the kids go on a bit ham. So yeah, like kind of like what you shared, Emma, like you can be all jacked up, like have a life like mine or not like mine, and come to breath work, and it's going to do its magic on you. Like I think with breath work for me personally, and what I've witnessed in all the different breathworks experiences I've been in, is it has its own magic unique to you. And if you trust it wholeheartedly, it will work its magic on you. And I feel like I'm living proof of that. Like,
you are, James, and I love that you shared the vulnerability of it, just because there's a lot of people often that say, I don't think it's going to work for me because I am too in this state. I've had too much trauma. I've had too much of this. Like, I don't think it's going to work. So yeah, I'm so grateful you shared. A lot of people are saying, my brother needs to hear this. Yeah.
And you've got 3 kids now, James, and I'm thinking like life's pretty crazy. So what's life now like? 3 kids, but breathwork in your toolkit.
It's crazy. 3 kids, homeschooling, like it's nuts. But I think for me, it's like when I catch myself, I've got reference points of when I'm in fight, or so I need to go take space and breathe, or I'm in flight and I actually got to move towards the thing I'm trying to fly away from. Or if I'm frozen, the frozen one for me is probably the most challenging one I find, because it's very subtle. Normally Candace is the one who's pointing it out. She's like, what are you doing over there? Frozen on the couch, sort of thing. Not like that, but so yeah, I think for me the breath, like I think it's one of the first things I shared from the Reconnected in 2019 was like the breath became a very strong anchor for me. And it's not that I remember it every moment or every day, but more and more as like I set the intention of like, just use the breath as an anchor. You know how powerful it is, and just every day try and get more connected to your breath as the days go on. And there's days when I'm, being less than good of a father, and I'm totally just like, okay, cool, it's part of life, part of being a parent. And I just strive and aspire to try and just become that little bit more regulated every day for my kids and for my wife and for myself. And the breath is just such an easy, free, it's totally free, like wonderful tool to use in your day.
Yeah. So true. Amazing share. So much resonance in the chat too. Yeah. Really appreciate it.
Gosh, yeah. So inspiring, James. What a journey.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Actually, Phil, I was wondering I was thinking, well, anyway, it's just happening, but my ping was, I feel like you might have a response just from James's share.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't, maybe. I'm trying to sort that out right now. I wanted to, I'm probably quite, this is very black and white, but quite, opposite to your situation, James, where I kind of felt like I've always seen myself as being this very regulated person. I don't need sort of the extremes to, go and, sort out my stuff or whatever. I don't need to go ride big waves, or I don't need to, so it's sort of doesn't feel like that at all. But then I've got all these other things that play, and that's, very much on that people pleasing side, and, and others that, are in many ways less extreme and more subtle in your everyday experiences. And I think I feel quite different than your story, James. Not that there's not been extremes in my life, for sure, but I feel like you're talking about those intentions. I feel like being able to work on the small stuff and the big stuff is really important to me. If I set myself an intention to get through something that is happening today, or something that I need to work on in the next 5 years, it's kind of like I can do it all. Eleanor, I just wanted to say something about about your initial question, which was around the there's no space for men to sort of come together and enter fatherhood, or however we want to describe it. And I think that's really true. I didn't necessarily go and look for any either. And sort of different than you, James, there. But what I started feeling really strongly is almost the opposite. It's like not feeling at home in the day-to-day conversations with other men, where it's like, okay, now I've got kids, I need to manage this. It's like this, almost like, I don't know, almost like business. I've got kids, so I need to do this, so I need to, work my job. My wife needs to do that. I need to put them in, I need to have the schedule. I need to have the, it wasn't a sort of a profound transition. It was more like, okay, now I have one more thing to manage in my life. And that felt really odd to me because, I definitely wanted, you kind of get stuck in that in a way, but then at the same time, I wanted to embrace something that was deeper than, just another thing that I need to manage alongside my, day-to-day work and job. And it's interesting because when you're in a lot of conversations with men, they do tend to go that way. They do tend to like, okay, let's meet up for a beer, and we're talking about the wife and the kids, or we're talking about again, it's not really typically me, but like I wasn't never really feeling at home in those conversations at all. And I was like, I can do this differently. And
I know my partner 100% relate with that. He's never related with the like meet up and have a beer thing. And once there was men that were having conscious conversations, he's like, yes.
Yeah, totally, right? Yeah, and that's such a recent thing to me, to be able to like understand that and see that clearly and start to. And there are plenty of men around that feel the same way. And I can, I feel like I can pick them much more than I used to. And it's like now these people are sort of, my friends, right? So
yeah, I love that.
It's almost like a challenge is, I mean, I can relate to it on a different scale for me because I had my kids when I was quite young. And so, I was 21 and none of my friends had kids. And so it was just kind of like being the parent amongst the non-parents and feeling this real dissonance and needing to create new circles and new connections so that I could have the support I needed. And it was almost like I didn't know that I needed support in parenting, but what I did know is that I didn't feel comfortable in the circles I was in before I was a parent. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't have said I need support parenting. I just said I just can't talk about I just feel disconnected from my old friends. A bit like that for me at that transition.
And I think, Eleanor, sorry, I'll try to keep it short, but the kind of the journey that I'm on now is like being able to, first of all, see it, really well, being super aware of myself and myself in those situations, and work to be able to communicate and assert that I actually feel differently. I'll avoid these situations, but I'll in the past I would never speak up about it. I would just let it happen, just because whatever, couldn't be bothered or didn't have the tools or didn't really know it exactly myself. And now I'm like, actually no, I don't agree with that, or I make different choices, or and that's sort of a shift that to be honest is just happening now. Like it's quite recent. So
I love that.
That feels Phil, because I can appreciate that it would be that's the being the change part, and it's hard to be a leader. And it sounds there's all these micro moments where we're invited to lead people who might be relating unconsciously or unkindly in their own worlds, and then how can we be someone who makes a stand even in these small moments when we've got this fawn response, or we're wired for connection and we really do need connection. Being someone who's like boundary in social conversations that's posed as it being quite harmless but actually take you out of your integrity is actually like quite a big internal moment. Just want to really help that.
And even the word leader you're using, like we're not, that I see and understand that, but it's not what typically is associated with the image of leaders or leadership, right? So that's another whole got a game.
Yeah.
We want to invite Daz on in a minute, but I wanted to ask quickly, just because I'm intrigued. How do you find breath work for your creativity? Like outside of the parenting realm and the trauma realm and the like unpacking all your things realm, what do you think breathwork has given you to be more open to receiving the magic of life, the creativity and the opportunities? Like, have you tapped into that realm with breathwork? Yeah, I knew Phil. I was like, I feel it. But yeah.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
You want to share? Yeah, bring it.
Because I was thinking about this as like first going into breathwork, it was for like the trauma, the nervous system, and I guess it wasn't until probably like for me last year and a half is when it kind of clicked into, oh my god, I can use this to create. I can use this to move things out of the way for creativity. So for me, like I like to write and also do speaking videos, but then draw as well, and like. But then also not even just that, like us moving up to the Northern Rivers, like we wouldn't have moved up here. We've wanted to move up here since 2019. And then it wasn't until last year we moved all the stuff in the way. And then we're here now, right? And I believe the breath work is like, it's the tool that moves the matter out of the way so that you can move into alignment for that timeline or life path, whatever you want to call it. In specific to creativity, it's like for me, like my creativity was quite shut down, but then since doing the breath work, it's like I get more inspired more frequently, and I feel like I can actually direct the energy more easily with intention setting, doing a breathe. Okay, this is what I'm going to focus upon. So it's not just like you said, Emma. It's not just about helping you clear traumas or reveal limiting beliefs, patterns, and decisions that you've made. I think just as much as you can use it as a tool to, for your business, for your work, for your creativity, for your. I feel like, I don't know, and Eleanor will share on this, it's like it feels pretty limitless. Like it feels like you kind of got unlimited uses with it in a way. It's quite magic in how you can use this free tool.
No, seriously.
Okay, let's just welcome to the chat, Daz.
Hi, Daz. Can you talk?
Hi.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you. Rock on. Yes, for everyone, Darren is Eleanor's partner.
He's the man behind the woman who's the face of the Reconnected. The true behind the scenes, the real support, the true driver, of everything that happens here. And his first time on the stage.
I know, on the stage, pulling him out.
I hold the fort.
Yeah, I know. I tried to get Ryan on, and then he was like, so who takes care of the 5 kids, Emma? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. We were just talking about how the breath can bring creativity in, and I'm keen to hear, Phil, what your experience has been with the opportunities that it's brought you, or just like more awareness around what you're creating in life.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I think creativity has those two, those two parts to it, like the everyday, being in my creative space and then sort of creating the future. I think on the first side, it's definitely been like, I know I'm a creative person, and I feel like I'm always and I need space to do that. Sort of, it always feels like I don't have enough of my space, my time to create, to be creative. If it's, whatever it may be, if it's researching something, if it's playing music, if it's, whatever it is that sort of, really gets me into that flow. So one of the things that has come with like greater awareness around that is being able to put day-to-day boundaries around, how I want to be creative. And that feels like such a small thing. But when you're, when you're someone like me, who's always sort of, everyone else is more important than what I do, kind of thing. Like people eat away at my time and my space and my energy and everything that I need to sort of, be in that creative space. And so I'm I'd say 100 times better at doing that than I ever was. Even operating in cultures where, if it's a work culture or others where that's not necessarily right, where everyone can just eat away at your calendar and whatever. And it's like, what's Phil's 2-hour block in his calendar? Can we take that time away from him? It's like, no, because that's my time. So that, I think that's been good. And whilst that's sort of the day-to-day stuff, that's also what I need to be able to, work on the bigger things that are happening in my life. Like if I don't have that time, then I'm just, drowning or swimming or whatever, paddling frantically to just get through the day and the week and whatever. So
not being at your maximum vitality and like expansion and holding. Yeah, it's like you can only hold so much when you aren't holding yourself, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And so that's been great. And I think James was saying something before that really landed. It's like that breath or breath work as an anchor. And for me, it feels more like that sort of consistent, frequent, committed practice, and take that in the loosest kind of possible way, like whatever works for you, but something that sort of something that is regular and sort of keeps is a regular reminder of me being in that space, being in that energy to be able to assert myself and my needs. On the bigger stuff, yeah, definitely, but I think it's been powerful but more fuzzy goals, not necessarily something like I want to breathe on living in a $5 million mansion in the next 5 years, or like not something sort of like that, more of like I want to work on my authenticity and leadership, and being in a space where I feel ease in life, where I'm not worrying about small things or whatever it is. And I feel like whilst that goal is sort of more fuzzy, I feel like the breath is doing the right things on a day-to-day to work towards those bigger goals. And so I definitely see the creation power. I don't think I've sort of fully harnessed the power yet, but that's okay. I mean, that's part of the process.
By integrated step, and then it gets wild, and now we're all about quantum leaping, timeline jumping, and like but yeah.
So, and that's cool. I'm like I'm very sort of trusting of the process, and wherever 100%. I am right now. So yeah,
I love that. Yeah, so many people are going to resonate too, because when you're just learning to trust yourself, and then trust the breath, and trust life, and it's really
so
epic.
Beautiful. Daz, I just know you have so much. I'm trying to think, but I've got some questions that I'd love to share about. But I know that there's a couple of angles that I feel like could be resonant, and one is your past experience was a lot with meditation, and then you've come to breathwork, and I'm just curious if you're open to speaking about anything that you've discovered about breathwork distinct from meditation, or where there's synergies. Yeah, whatever you want to share.
Oh, yeah. I have like all the way back to when I was 27, I fell in love with meditation, and my elder brother had started living in a Vipassana meditation center, and the moment he told me, I just felt like that's for me, and I started lying on the floor and getting in touch, being mindful of my body, and I found like that was just a total shift of my parallel, what was going on, and that was working late nights, the chef, under a lot of pressure, coming home, regulating myself by drinking alcohol or smoking or things like that to send my sleep, and it'll just be this rotation. But but that was my first introduction into breath. I just remember that first week or month, I just fell in love with just lying on my carpet floor in my single unit. And from there, I found myself just doing multiple Vipassana retreats. So I don't know if that resonates with a lot of people out there. So a lot of people have a meditation background, and I think I've seen like big shifts where, well, breath work later on now has given my actual meditation experience, and I really don't see the differences. I see the differences between the two, and I see where this style of breath work, which is very integrative, has been a real upgrade for me. Has actually changed my life.
Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit about what's changed for you? Because one thing I want to say actually before is that I think a lot of people would assume that you'd been doing breathwork for a long time purely because, you know, we've been together for a long time and I do breathwork, and, you know, and I'm a huge, one of the philosophies in breathwork is that people come to breathwork when they're ready. And so for me, I would never pressure someone to do breathwork, but if you feel drawn, then that's your timing. So it's like everyone in this space, everyone who's joined the 5-day free has some kind of draw to it, right?
Yeah, it's
because
timing.
there's a timing that's there.
Yeah.
And but you know, so breath, I'd just love for you to share what breathwork has opened up for you just in your time with it.
I think it'd be really cool just to acknowledge, like, a long time ago, I got so far into meditation. I had like some pretty big life traumatic moments in my life that led to it, but I ended up in a monastery in Burma. So, and I've probably spent like over maybe up to 4 years in Burma now, meditating in monasteries or really connected to it. And the first time was 2.5 years, and I did the full monk thing, and it was a really amazing experience. Yeah. For if anybody's been into the insight meditation lineage, it's a bit different to the Goenka lineages, but they follow the same sort of teachings, and pretty much accept all experience, soften into the experience. There's a lot of regulating. There's a lot of focus on calmness. And I'm probably not doing the total thing justice, and there's a lot of experiences of, once you get to the other side of all the conversations in your head, it's a different, you kind of can land in really strong bliss states. Like awareness is just so strong, and it's so strong that as soon as a thought or an emotion or something comes up, I learned strategies, and this is that my awareness or my mind would come in and just cut them off straight away. So there was a set of experience, set of emotions which were not okay. And if you go to Myanmar this day, I remember playing games with kids, and we're playing emotion games. And as soon as we get the kids to play out anger, the kids go, no, anger's not allowed. Or, you know, it's just, you've got to be happy. And so they're continually conditioned. You're continually conditioned that you have to be happy and regulated, can't show anger. And there's a set of emotions that aren't allowed to be. And the outcome of that in my life, I came back as being a monk, and I had a series of relationships that I went through, and they always broke up in when I look back at now, and this dysregulation came up, and I would feel so overwhelmed that I would think there must be something wrong with this relationship. I shouldn't feel this way. I just want to go back to feeling regulated and bliss and calm. And as I look back, I can see this series of relationships that all got broken down from just strong emotions that I've never learned how to be with. And I've always had this experience that anger is embarrassing. Anger is something that you shouldn't show. And so when it comes up, it's like really, really shocking. And when it comes up in the relationship, my perceptions were like, they were just really, really unhealthy. And everything was, instead of being okay with being in an argument in a relationship, which is now I know is a really normal way of being, my mind would go, oh, there's something wrong with the relationship. We shouldn't be arguing. And I would just sever it. And of course, I'd feel relief the next day. But then I'll go back in the relationship and it'll just happen again and again and again. This is where breathwork has really opened up my world in relationships. So I know, like, at the base of they got reconnected parenting, but for me, it's my relationship with the kids and the teenagers, but it's my relationship with my partner and all the conditioning and the way I should be and the way there's so I can't tell you how much in my Christian upbringing in an all boys school. It wasn't really that safe way of being. You had to be in a certain part of the pyramid. For me, and if I speak to the negative experiences of it, that kept on playing out in my whole life. Yeah.
And I'd love to just ask, because there's a lot of people that probably wouldn't realize this, but Darren is the stepfather to Eleanor's 4 children. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of step parents in the community, and you don't know what step parenting is like until you're a step parent. Hands up, I experienced it. There's nothing like it. It's so different to being a parent. And so I'm intrigued about what breathwork has given you in that journey.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Step parenting is just another reality, and there's not enough information out there on how to relate to it. Because first thing is, you don't become a step parent. So I was a step parent of 4. The youngest being 4 years old and the oldest being 9, and actually it's quite blissful the first couple of years, but there comes a time when they're transitioning into teenagehood, and as a step parent, we really haven't gone through the fire. It feels like, for me, I never went through the fire. What's the baptism of fire? I never went through these steps, or even to get to that real safe connection with your kid that, still there's always something there and the kids can play on it. And reconnected parenting has just given me a whole level of adjusting, of reading my kids, where I didn't, like, I had it on my list of having a partner with kids. That's a really good thing. But how to be with kids, and where's my line to go over to love the kids and receive love back? And as some of my conditioning, I feel like my core patterning is about, I've got to do this myself. There's no one there to help me, which is my core belief patterning. And so when you get these beautiful kids coming to love you, or even feel safe enough to, be angry at you and just to unload it all, to see that that's actually a sign of safety and love. Breathwork in the way of evolving and stretching out and seeing how, like, the teens themselves have to unload their dysregulation somehow. And I hope that makes sense. I sort of went over the park.
Yeah, it 100% makes sense, and it's like it's that perspective flip of, and it feels really unfair at the time, but it's like, when you're your child's safe space, they will offload these difficult feelings. And as a step parent myself, I had no concept of, like, I hadn't gone through the fire, because when I started to date Ryan, he had a 2-year-old, and at that stage I couldn't even believe that he wanted to stay, like, to have him co-sleep. I was like, what? He should be in his other room. I'm here. I'm more important, like, I hadn't gone through the maternal thing until I had my own kids. And then I was like, you get out of the bed. I've got my babies here. Yeah. It was just a whole new world for me. And there's so much that we miss as a step parent, but also so much that we have to show up for. It's like breathwork. My goodness. I'm so grateful that it came to me.
It does. Would you share anything about what breathwork's given you in terms of, like, the emotional integration, or, like, where you've been in your process, or and like what in touch with now? Yeah.
That's a really, really good question, because like I did everything right in my meditation, and I upgraded my meditation to a really high standard of anybody who knows me. And but there's still these old lingering things that kept on coming in, just the way I perceived people, or blaming, and I knew that they were there, and but it was very hard to know what to do with them, apart from soften them, breathe into them. I know I've been taught to accept it, but I don't know, sort of like the wisdom isn't quite there, and it's not the goal. The goal is not to go for a monk. So this is probably a good perspective of somebody studying Vipassana. It's an amazing tradition. It's just an awesome tradition. But you don't need to go through emotions to go into deep absorptions or deep experiences. Like, emotions are not the doorway. If you read any of it, but I'm living a real life. I'm not in a monastery. Yeah, there's a different set of buttons inside a monastery to the buttons that are getting pushed in life. And these continually patterns just went round and round. Hey?
I just said, especially with 4 teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been there, Eleanor. You've been through my baptism of fire. And I you know, under pressure, certain ways of being that I think you should not say that. It's not. Breath. There's a certain part in breath work. So in my if it's okay to talk like this, because it might be relevant to a lot of people who do Vipassana or insight, who want to go to another level. So there's a certain part in meditation you get to, and you notice you like or dislike, and it's a slipperiness. But this type of breath work, or rebirthing, allows you to go right, instead of focusing up right to the emotion and actually asking, what am I feeling? What's my feeling to this moment? Instead of being aware, I don't like it or I do like it, like really. And this has just uncovered just this. It's totally changed my life. I've gone. I feel like I've gone from I have to do this myself. The world is like this. I've got to do it myself, do it by myself, to I want to call in love. I want people to accept love and people to help me. And all it took was a series of breathwork sessions and an experience of having a full memory of my birth to just, it was rewired overnight. And it wasn't actually that I noticed it. I just noticed a week or two later, just that my relationship to people had just changed. And I sort of like, I totally forgot about it. It wasn't part of me anymore. And in that moment I realized, all these little parts in me that might be shy or nervous, they all can change. They all can change. Yeah.
I love that share so much, and it's so resonant for people, because a lot of people do meditation, and you know, it is a bit hard when you're just getting started. What is the distinction, and
how's it different?
How's it different?
What does it change?
Yeah.
And it's true, like it's true, as you went from literally creating circumstances where you had no support and you were doing it all yourself, to, like, you know, within days creating heaps of support and feeling really loved and connected. And it's really inspiring to see from the outside looking in, just what is possible.
So
these
cool.
patterns that we just think would be unable to change, just how quickly we can
and that they're so ingrained. You know, you've been spending so many years in this pattern. It's like, how can it shift? And there's a lot of perspective that you've got to, it's going to be really hard, Like it's going to be so hard, and that can block people or be a objection to wanting to do the work. But it can actually be one of those moments where you look back and go, wow, I didn't realize that one moment was going to give me a whole new way of being. So cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm really curious. James, I heard you say something about that you've tried holotropic breathwork before, and I actually wanted to ask a question because when I first started this style of breathwork, I don't know why, but I noticed a lot of men were doing breathwork, but it was more the dynamic styles of breathwork with like Wim Hof and Force, and I ended up with this perspective that men were more attracted to things that gave them this kind of dynamic, big experience, which was kind of what I thought for a while. And gradually over the years, I've noticed more and more men are open to doing this, the parasympathetic, the gentle, the slowed down, but also the work that kind of requires this more, I don't know, it's like a more subtle introspectiveness and self-awareness and in getting in touch with, not just going like into a sympathetic expanded state. But I'm curious what your experience has been with that. I don't know. There's a lot of men you see doing other styles, and it's,
So I've thought about this a lot. Like, you know, in today's sort of climate and culture, there's more breathwork styles you can poke a stick at the moment, and most of them are dynamic. And like for me, like holotropic was great. I had beautiful experiences. Wim Hof, great, but I found it just didn't integrate anything really in my nervous system. And I wonder, what I've wondered on this specific topic, like contemplating, is like, it's like the masculine was going towards the masculine style of breathing because that's all they kind of feel open to. And what I've noticed from this style is it's more feminine, without putting it in a box. It is more gentle and feminine and nurturing and intentional, intuitive. And I think why men probably feel more drawn to the dynamic is because, this is my personal experience, is you have to get more vulnerable and to be in touch with those sort of deeper feelings, beliefs, because they're quite subtle. So for me, like I revealed a belief just recently in a breathwork, because I don't exist. And I was like, oh shit, like that makes so much sense to my life. But I would never have revealed that doing an intense, dynamic breathe, because it was so subtle. It was right in my core. It's like I've revealed all these different beliefs, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's still more. And then it's like, I don't exist. And I think like the dynamic, and this is my personal opinion, is I feel like the dynamic sort of masculine breathwork movement at the moment is a bit of a distraction. It's like men are trying to do something different, but in the same way. So they're just going and doing the dynamic breathing, when it's like, you know, maybe this is just some thought, like, you know, for women, you could see like doing the dynamic might be supportive in some way, because they're used to being in the feminine, if you looked at it from that sort of perspective. But I think in the way in which you guys are, you know, orientating and offering breath work, I feel this is more, it creates deeper change and lasting change and actual change. It doesn't just like give you pretend change. That's what holotropic and dynamic did. It was like pretend change, and kind of like what Daz was sharing. It's like, and then I'd get dysregulated and realize that none of it did anything. And then it's like, now it's doing this style of actually revealing and clearing and making new decisions and creating. I'm seeing now that I have Emma said, holding capacity is much deeper and larger. And
I love what Phil said here is, I'll put it in the same bucket as beers at the pub. And because, you know what I
I discovered with my partner, and he was keen to share this perspective, but he's got the 5 kids, including the twins at home. And he was keen to share this perspective was I learnt dynamic breath when I first started, and I have a constitution that I can go there. It's great for me. And I came out of that situation flying. And he saw the change, the transformation, and he was like, well, I want to do it. I want to go do it. And it was just way too much for him. He's a sensitive person and he found it really dysregulating. And so he was like, well, breathwork's not for me. I'm just going to leave that to you and I'm going to walk away from that situation. And then he started doing the more parasympathetic style, and it's more to his constitution, but he also had a process around, well, if it's not big and massive, is it doing anything?
Or is it masculine?
Is it masculine? True. Yeah, he had that. But it was like, if I'm not having like a really intense session, then am I actually making any change?
But I think like one of the things, and Rebecca Harrop pulled it out actually, because Rebecca's been around for a long time. Rebecca mirrored back to Daz in Daz's share when you said you forgot you had the problem. And it's that this style of breathwork, the way that it is an integrated change, and it just lets us genuinely integrate, you know. You know what? I feel like we could talk all weekend. Like
we just need to have a
we
whole
could just
vibe.
go and go. I feel like one of the biggest things in the space right now, and Phil, I wonder if you could speak to this. A lot of women want their men to do breath work. Like we there's this feeling like we get how it's like once, and I think everyone experiences this, to be honest, because it's like once you realize how good it is, it's like breath work. Did you know about breath work? Did you know about breath work? But I'd be really curious what you would say to someone who was like really swept up in the work here this 5 days and whose partner is maybe not ready yet, or he's just watching. Or do you have any advice or words of wisdom, or can speak from your experience around it?
Gosh, yeah, it's a good question, because it's like when you're in it and you're like, yep, no, you don't ask those questions. When you're outside of it, you know, it feels like, okay, I don't really understand it. And it's, you know, this fuzzy thing, and it's more nuanced. And I think someone shared before to say like, you can, you know, I've only been able to see the replays. And I actually, that sort of really resonated, because I think, you know, like I feel like getting people to just, you know, dip into it by being able to, you know, join on their own, you know, on their own schedule. And, you know, for me, schedule is a big thing, right? So like, if I'm going to be, you know, at 6 a.m., well, that's Australian time, or, you know, Brisbane time, 6 a.m., you know, consistently over a period of time, that, you know, that might feel like a really huge commitment from the start. And I think that whilst that you would say that commitment is probably important, I think it comes sort of as a result. It's not sort of before you actually, you know, join the group or the sessions. And I feel like it's almost saying like, why wouldn't you just, you know, try this, you know, this free thing, you know? James said your breath is free, so you know, go and do it. Let's, you know, join a few times at your own schedule. If this, you know, just happens not to work for you, that's not a drama. You know, I think that's really great. And another thing that I wish,
you know what I
wish would, Emma, go.
Oh, well, I just heard you at the beginning say that you were inspired by Belle. And so is it like less about being forced to do something?
How did you come to
I'm
it?
doing like, so if Belle was like, well, I'm rocking it and you better come along for the ride. It's more like you were inspired and then so intrigued, curious.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think I was never forced to join. Belle's on the chat, so I'll be careful with what I say. But no, but
well, can I just read you what she did say? She said, the minute I stopped asking him is the minute that he actually started being curious. I love that. My partner would say.
Yeah. I feel like if I reflect back on it, this is is real time reflection, but
Yeah.
I really sort of wished at that first one we would have had some kind of, you know, some committed communication around it, because it's such a it was such a sort of profound thing, and I think it was just all happening in real time, and I wasn't forced into it, but then I also sort of wasn't really taken on the ride, and I feel like it's like, oh, I really want to talk about this. I really want to understand, you know, how this transformation is feeling, or what is this doing to you. And,
yeah. Wow, you know what? I feel really teary about that, because I'm really curious. And maybe this will be too personal more than broad, but like, what could someone say that would include someone in their experience? Because I think, you know, as women, we can very easily
when we get a new
start these
perspective
conversations from an angle that actually shuts down our partner's growth or willingness to show up, because we can come from this punishing space without really noticing. I feel teary. I know this from myself. It's like you can really inadvertently be making someone wrong, as opposed to just inviting someone in on the journey. I find it really moving to hear that in retrospect you would have liked to have come in, but there was not so much, I don't know, it's not so much to do with Belle, but even I'm thinking about the messaging that we have here at the Reconnected. It's like not even kind of probably unique to your relationship, more of a bigger picture of like,
I'll be the first to admit I've subtly annihilated Ryan sometimes when I've had perspective shifts, and I'm like, so you get it now? And he's like, woo, okay. You just like took me somewhere, and I'm not quite sure where I'm at, and I got to reorganize all my thinking around it. And I'm a bit like we can really subtly kind of put a lot of force on awareness shifts, you know.
That question of like, do you get it now? It's not like a on or off switch, you know, because it's such a process and a transformation. Like you can't, you know, it's like even asking that question is already like, that's probably just gonna, maybe someone will say yes, but it's actually a no in their minds, you know, like it's just, Oh, well, that's
I love that you shared that. People will be really resonating with that.
Really gets me intrigued, because I just think, how can we invite, like, you know, I'm on a mission to connect with as many people with breathwork as possible, but with this understanding that people's timing is very important. But I know that one of the things that can open up someone is connecting with them where they're at, and I think it can be hard sometimes when we've realized, like, when we found breathwork for ourselves and we're having realizations,
it can feel urgent.
It can just feel like we're just making other people wrong for not doing it, as opposed to genuinely connecting with them where they're at, and communicating in a way that invites them in, you know.
Can I just say, so just the fact of this communication with other men, is not just you know, a woman's issue. Like I find it so much easier to talk about breathwork with friends that are female than with my male friends. You know, like it's not, you know, it's strange, and I think that's, you know, that's sort of a process that I'm going through as well. And maybe I should set myself a target, saying I need to bring, you know, X amount of male friends into this, you know, initiation this year.
Can I share on what you've touched to, Eleanor, about inviting your partner? Because I know for me, it's like with my relationship with Candace, we can both light each other up, or like Emma said, annihilate each other on the problem focus. This is where you got to work, which then shuts you down. And I think what's helped us is like focus on what the breathwork's going to give us in a relationship. So maybe it's like connection and intimacy. Maybe it's better communicating. Maybe it's more presence with each other or like kids, or maybe it's actually like more time and space for yourself. And I wonder if you orientated the conversation around an intended goal, relationship goal of like, this is where it could take us if we, do breath work together or individually, is like we can start to work towards becoming more intimate. And I feel like for me, that's what supported our conversation. Like, obviously we do breath work, but in the past it was just me doing breath work and Candice wasn't doing it. And, she was just mum, work. And I know when, kind of like what Phil said, or Belle, like as soon as I dropped the conversation, she was all in. But I noticed a nuance recently is like when I focus on relationship intentions and goals, it's kind of like a unit, like a triangle. Here's the relationship point at the top, focusing together. I notice we're both more open to moving in that direction, rather than one of us being shut down and just like rebelling, like no way doing that. And just with working with a lot of men who come to me and go, my partner's sent me here to do the work. As extreme as I had a client come to me like a while ago with a list, like literally like 3-page list from his partner of all the things she wants him to work on. It just blew my mind. Like, what's happening right now,
This is actually how I kind of came to this sense too, James, because I see, I when I was doing a lot of one-to-one work, the most of the men who I did breath work with had been literally sent there from their partners. And so what I learned was it doesn't work unless you're ready.
Yeah.
Like you actually have to be internally open to do the work, or the breath work itself does. I'm sure it doesn't not work, but it's like there's a degree of openness that's required. And I always talk about breath work like in a sense when we think about breath work and how it works with our nervous system, our body is like a flower and you cannot rip the petals open. Like, there is a timing that's inherent within it that does unfold, that will unfold. But this like space that we need to hold for our partners, regardless of gender, is like patience, curiosity. I need to grow myself. I need to just grow. And, there's this unfolding that does happen for everyone around us when we do that. But again, I love what you said in the chat, Phil. Like, I guess we didn't know what we didn't know back then. But it also is like my mission to understand how to invite people who are ready to bloom. So, it's like what could possibly be said? Or
we should actually segue to that because we do have to end this chat. We've gone over and it's just been too much fun.
I could stay,
in this
all
conversation.
Weekend.
And it has probably
Really
something
good.
amazing. But I'd love to give you all the opportunity to just say what you feel to say.
Yeah, and true. And where we're at in the 5-day free is that the last replay was posted yesterday, so all the content is there, and we're starting 21 days on Tuesday. And we know that there are a lot of men in the space. We hope that speaking to you guys will help men to feel like they can be more present. And it's been epic seeing Jared and who else was here in the Rohan and
there's a whole bunch.
There was a
guys showing up.
Shelby's talking about her partner and the challenges he feels showing up in spaces like this. And I was just wondering, just anything you need to say to feel complete with this conversation, or anything you'd express to any men who might be in the space but maybe not commenting or sharing or feeling fully like they can really show up here. Just want to
I think if I can share, I think one thing that comes to mind is I noticed that we talk about relationships and things, and I noticed so I was on my path, and Eleanor, you're on your path with breathwork, and I suppose inspiring each other. And there's a certain, I don't know, some sort of narrative conditioning of don't be overpowered by your woman, be a man. You know that there's something there that inherently in my schooling,
Yep.
and 1972 born, that there's this narrative of don't be controlled, don't da. If there was any men listen, just do it. Just do it. And any women, and all your partners out there, women out there, like, it just saves your relationship. And any women out there, just be the guiding light. That's all you have to be.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's awesome.
I want to jump on that boat.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Who
Thanks,
else?
Daz. I love that.
It's true.
I might jump
really
in
well
after
articulated.
Daz.
Yeah.
Yeah, just do it in a way. Like, if I'm going to use Phil's beer analogy, like, when you go and buy and try a new beer, you don't know what it's going to taste like, but you still go and taste it anyway. It's just kind of like breath work. Just try it, give it a good shot. Like, you buy 4 beers, you'll drink those 4 beers. Just give it a crack, and have a crack at the breathe, because you never know what 4 breathes might do for you. And then if you're starting to feel even cold, share one time. It's a very supportive community. When I joined being only bloke in 2019, I felt so welcomed, and I was like, I felt supported, I felt welcomed, and I haven't not ever felt that from the Reconnected community when I jump in. And I think it's a space for parents, not necessarily just mothers, but for parents to become better parents and better partners. And like Daz, just do it. It's a beautiful, beautiful practice.
Yeah, wow.
I've been stoked having this conversation.
Thanks so much, James. Yeah.
Great analogy. I love it.
I think that beer thing's gonna haunt me forever, but and I haven't been drinking, actually, so that's the other thing. So which is funny, but just picking up on what you said there, James, I think no sort of very specific expectation around what you'll get out of this, like, as in I just feel like you're right, like, being better partners. I feel like even if participating in this gives you 1, 2, 3, or a handful of just like really good conversations on the back of it with your partner on things that you've never had the language or the awareness or the whatever it is for, it's a huge win, right? And again, reflecting on sitting on the fringes of this, I think we, for us, having had an additional awareness and vocabulary and and language to talk about certain things has been a huge part of the difference as well. So I'd say there's no it's such an easy win, that's beer isn't an easy win, like, that sounds like just do it.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much. This has been a completely unique experience for the Reconnected, and I love that James said he's always felt welcome. I could tell you now that it is actually extremely healing for women to see men show up. The women are always going to be really open to that, because they love when they see men pioneering and doing the work. It's it's very welcome, very, very welcome. So thank you so much. You all brought your truly unique frequency to this chat, and it was the best thing ever. So many people are resonating and feeling like they can show this to their partners and their extended family. So thank you so much. And thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Have an epic day.
See you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Loved it.
James,
Bye, everyone. Loved it. Very inspiring.